Welcome back to the NATO Public Forum. My name is Marvin, and I'm not here alone. As always, during the Public Forum, I've got with me Dr. Bryan Wells. Hello, first of all.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. You are actually the Chief Scientist of the NATO. Can you explain our audience, our younger audience especially, what that actually means? Because normally when we talk about NATO, we actually talk about military, right?
Yep. That's a really good question, and I'd like to start by outlining the NATO Science and Technology Organization. We have three elements to the NATO Science and Technology Organization. The first is the Office of the Chief Scientist, which is based in NATO headquarters in Brussels. This is a small organization. It's about 15 people strong, and its main function is to support me in my role as Principal Scientific Advisor to NATO leadership and also as Chair of the NATO Science and Technology Board. The second NATO entity is called the Collaboration Support Office, which is based in Paris. This is about 50 people strong. And this supports the collaborative programme of work of the NATO Science and Technology Organisation. Let me unpick that a little bit. So NATO has a network of about 5,000 scientists and engineers across the globe. It's drawn from the 32 allied nations, but it also has a strong showing from partner nations as well, particularly Japan and Australia, but there are others in addition. And this network at any one time has about 400 projects underway, everything from research symposia to formal research task groups which undertake academic research of about 3 years duration. This programme of work has a value of around 400 million euros per year. So it's a very significant investment of money into NATO science and technology. And it covers the full range of science that NATO needs, everything from hypersonics to cognitive warfare through to artificial intelligence. We also have a Centre for Maritime Research and Experimentation based at La Spezia in Italy, and as its name suggests, this is NATO's own laboratory focused very much on underwater science and technology.
So really broad, and it's not just one thing, it's not just one location. Can you give us examples where it is not just military based, or where the use of it is not just for military but also for other things? Can you give us examples for that?
Yes. Very early in the time of COVID-19, it was quite clear that the Allies were being subject to disinformation campaigns, both in terms of information about the spread of COVID, how it might be transmitted, but also on the use of vaccines as well. So we set up a group very quickly to look at ways in which we could counter disinformation and how we could advise our policymakers, both in NATO headquarters, but more importantly, back into the capitals of the nations, on how such disinformation could be countered. Clearly, there was a military interest in that, but it was much more supporting decision makers in their wider medical and civil roles.
Does there need to be a military base for the science, or like what you guys do when it comes to new projects? Does it always have to be related to military?
It has to be related to the needs of the allied nations. So when we have any activity undertaken, it needs to be agreed by 4 nations, and one of them needs to agree to be in the lead. So it's very much driven by how the nations judge their needs. The vast majority of our research is, of course, directly in support of military capability requirements, but other areas, particularly, say, artificial intelligence for decision-making. That could be military, or it could be on the political side of NATO as well.
You have been obviously involved in a lot of projects in the past then as well. Which project is the one which you still think about sometimes, and you still are fascinated by it?
I'll give you an example of work at the Centre for Maritime Research and Experimentation. As part of its work, particularly around autonomous anti-submarine warfare, it is also doing work on climate change. So to give you the concrete example, it's looking at the effects on the Northern Atlantic of the melting of the Greenland ice cap. As the Greenland ice cap melts, so cold water goes into the Atlantic, and it's water with a lower salt content. It turns out that that is vital information on the climate change in that region. And so when the Centre's research vessel deploys north, as it does every year, it can undertake climate change experiments as well as experiments into anti-submarine warfare.
Yeah. Which projects are there in the future? What can you already tell, if you can tell something, but which projects are in the making, and what are you guys within that branch of the NATO going to do in the next couple of years or even centuries?
Looking ahead, we've got a number of large-scale areas where we are looking to bring together work that we've done and look at it from a more strategic level and put some coherence in the work that we are doing. We've done this already in a number of areas. Cognitive warfare and disinformation is one, hypersonics is another, and there are a range of others. Foresight techniques. What does it mean to be able to predict the future? There are different ways in which you can do that, and we've been looking at a number of different techniques. Looking ahead, there's a lot of talk about multi-domain operations. We're looking at the scientific ways in which we can support both military and civil decision makers in that.
You just said ways to predict the future.
Yeah.
Can you explain that maybe a bit more? Because that sounds very outlandish. That sounds very alien at first.
It's ways in which we can think about the future in new ways. For example, of course, we are looking at the scientific evidence base for the future direction of science in areas such as hypersonics, autonomy, artificial intelligence. But what is the best way of making this come alive, particularly for non-scientific audiences? A lot of work has been done on the use of realistic fiction that is based on our scientific evidence to make these foresight products come alive for a non-scientific audience.
Realistic fiction. That you need to explain a bit further. Does it really? Do you mean by that a book, or like let's say video games, which are then based on the science?
It will usually be a short few pages of a scenario that is based on the science, but it could equally be a short film, for example.
Produced by NATO, for example.
We are looking at those sorts of things that we could do in the future.
Very interesting. Dr. Bryan Wells, thank you so much for taking the time explaining what you actually do, because I think a lot of people don't know about that, and it was very interesting to me to hear about that. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much too.
And if you guys would like to see more videos of us, then please click through all the videos we've prepared for you. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.